Thank you so much for watching Landumc Goes There. Please subscribe and hit the like button and the bell notification button. I have to tell you that this channel was really built around the Andy Griffith Show and my love for it. I've done so many videos on it that I've lost count. I've visited the set locations. I've done videos on almost all the character actors that were on it because they're all so fascinating. You'd be hard-pressed to find another show that was written so well and had such quality actors on it that in being there, they deceive our minds into thinking that Mayberry is completely real. This docile community of roughly between 2,000 and 5,000 people captured our imagination. And rarely do you find a program that was as popular as it is, and that has had such a lingering effect on the people that watch it. Everywhere this fictional sheriff turned, he was greeted by neighbors that felt completely real. One of Mayberry's most enduring residents is Floyd the Barber. He was portrayed by Howard McNear. Floyd Lawson fit into the tempo of this slow-moving, one-traffic-light town. Everything about Floyd is Mayberry through and through. It stands to reason, then, that the town and the show would feel remarkably different in his absence. And that was the case when health complications took him off the show. Midway through the production of the third season, he suffered a massive stroke that left him unable to work. It greatly impaired his mobility because he was paralyzed down the left side of his body. Nobody on the set expected him to ever return. A full year and a half later, the creative team was working on a new script that called for some homespun comic relief. The producers said, "Boy, I wish we had Howard here." And lucky for the fans of the show, the producers made a phone call to the actor's home. They talked to his wife, and she told them that work would be a godsend to him now, that he had recovered just enough to become incredibly bored. So knowing that they would have to work to compensate for his limitations, the writers wrote a small part for him into that episode. And with that, Floyd the Barber made his triumphant return to Mayberry. And he didn't just stick around for that one episode. He again became a regular on the show. He had no difficulty with his lines at all, as the stroke only affected him physically. As such, Floyd would almost always be seen sitting down with his hands either in his lap or holding a newspaper. Another one of my favorite character actors on the series is George Lindsay, who played Goober. Goober was the happy-go-lucky cousin of Jim Neighbor's character, Gomer Pyle. But before this series, he was almost typecast as a Western actor. But the show led him to be more comfortable in a car than on a horse. He may have known how to imitate Chester from Gunsmoke, but you would find him pumping gas at Wally's filling station, not out in the Wild West. It's hard to picture Goober as a tough-as-nails cowboy or a good low-down bandit terrorizing a saloon. However, that was almost what happened to George Lindsay. He found work on many westerns. It was the glory days of the small-screen cowboy, and each episode of a series usually called for new faces coming across the dusty trails of the designed hero. Some actors built their whole careers around guest starring on these shows. At the time, Lindsay wasn't in a position to turn down the opportunity to work on westerns. He had roles on The Rifleman, Daniel Boone, Death Valley Days, and one off-kilter deal was in The Twilight Zone. But Lindsay found out he wasn't cut out for westerns. He just wasn't much on a horse at all. By the time his cousin, Jim Neighbors, joined the cast of the series, it had already been on the air for 2.5 seasons. When Andy Griffith discovered Jim Nabors in 1962, Jim was performing in a cabaret theater act in a nightclub called The Horn. Frances Bavier took a real liking to Jim Nabors, and she approached him on one of the very first days on the set, trying to encourage him and to teach him how to act in front of a camera. She told him, "Darling, the camera never misses anything. It never misses a wink or a blink or a smile. I know you're from the nightclubs, and you don't have to do things the way you did it there. Just settle down and be yourself." History shows us that advice paid off. Gomer Pyle was popular enough to be invited back after that one episode for an additional 22 episodes before leading to the spin-off show Gomer Pyle USMC. In addition to his acting success, a genuine friendship grew from his exchanges with Frances Bavier. These two remained very close for years, and they would often go antiquing together on the weekends. Now, Andy Griffith and Don Knotts were the core of the show, and they portray this squeaky clean image during the entire series. But that's not the way real life was for either of them. Andy spent plenty of time with his on-screen girlfriend, Anita Corso, but in real life she became a lover of his shortly after joining the cast in 1963. It's said that he couldn't get enough of her. Everybody on the set said their torrid affair was the worst-kept secret on the production. And Don Knotts liked the women too. Initially, when the show started, he was married to Catherine Metz, but he went on to have a sweetie named Lynn Paul. He met Lynn Paul because she was an assistant to Andy Griffith's manager. Eventually, Don Knotts confessed to his wife that he had been having an affair with her. After that happened, the marriage collapsed, and they divorced in 1964. Andy Griffith ended up divorcing his wife, Barbara, because not only was he spending time with Anita, he had had relationships with quite a few other guest stars on the show, most notably Joanna Moore, who plays a semi-girlfriend for 4 episodes. I tell you all this not to criticize these guys at all, but to make you realize, like I always have to come to terms with, that Mayberry is a true state of mind. And as much as we want to believe it really exists, it doesn't, except for the time that we spend with it watching those heartwarming episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.